But then as they get to know you, you sort of become an insider, right? And I think this happens with any industry, right? So as you become that insider, as you become part of the community, even though I've never been a real estate agent and I've never held a real estate license, it opens doors. And I think there's the marketing angle, but there's also the networking angle. That was something that I've kind of learned over the past couple of years, is that if you focus on a niche, especially if you're, B2B and you sort of focus on a particular industry, you can network your way up to the top of that industry much faster.
Welcome to the 100th episode of Bourbon Friday. I'm Eric Luttenegger, the founder of Tenacity and your host. It's my great pleasure to reintroduce you to Nick Niehaus, the co-founder and head trainer of Business Video School and the former host of the Bourbon Friday Show. Welcome, Nick.
Right. Yeah, thanks, Eric. No, I'm pumped for this, man. It's been a while since we had a chance to do one of these, and to be back for the 100th episode is quite an honor. So thanks for the invitation.
Of course. And there was no way I was going to do this, but since it was me, it was you, Christian, and myself on the first episode of this. So
right.
I definitely was like,
circle.
And it also makes it easy for me because now I don't have to find like this incredible guest for the 100th episode, but not that you aren't an incredible guest, because you are. We've seen each other a few times via Zoom, of course, at Bourbon Friday, and you've been doing a lot of different things and new things, really, especially since all the pandemic started. So you started Business Video School during all of this. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So the pandemic, I mean, of all the different business models you can be in when lockdowns happen, I think in-person video production was probably one of the worst because we got 100% shut down. So we were in December of 2019, we had actually started to pilot it wasn't quite a school. It was kind of a course that we had created that was basically meant to teach our specialty in connect marketing, which is what it was called at the time. Was working with real estate agents, helping them get on camera, making videos, marketing videos for them. And it was all studio based. So they'd come to us and we'd write the script with them. And we had this really efficient process to get their video done in just a couple hours. And what we found is that a lot of them were struggling to then convert the rest of their business to video. So they put out this one very first video and then we'd never see another piece of video content out of them. And so we're like, well, that's not good. We really want to encourage people to sort of make this transition to this new form of communication as we see it. And so we started piloting a training course, right? So basic stuff, how to use your phone to record selfie videos and make stuff for social media, and just sort of get used to doing it. Three or so months later, well, actually like a month or two later, we started to hear, the noise of, hey, there's this thing going on in China and here's what's happening. And, is this going to reach the United States and all that? And so we started to think, okay, what might happen if we do get locked down and what does that look like? And, it became very clear very quickly that video production was going to get shut down and people were probably going to flood in the direction of online learning, which is exactly what happened during that period. So, we started Business Video School. We went out and we sort of recruited some different partners, actually 5 of us co-founders in the school. We've got Michael Glazer, our videographer, Jeff Fitzer and Tristan Amata. And Jeff and Tristan are sort of big time influencers in the real estate space and are involved in starting Lab Code Agents. Tristan's the founder of Lab Code Agents, which is the largest social media group for real estate agents and I think the whole world even. So we got this amazing team together. We started promoting things. And I think within like 2 months, we'd worked with 150 students right off the bat. So that's kind of grown since then. We can obviously talk more about it, but that got that launched. And then we didn't get rid of Connect Marketing. We actually brought one of our employees and one of our freelance partners on board, and now they're partners in that business. We changed the name to Connect Video because it is 100% focused on video production. And that's certainly coming back now, finally, so that was a bit of a struggle for a few months there. But we're seeing a rebound in the demand for video production at this point. Okay.
Wow. So let's take a sort of a step back. You are, we've known each other for quite some time. But you started out, I'm starting to become this sort of serial entrepreneur. You started out with Schoolie, is that right? What was Schoolie?
Right. Yeah, so the case Schoolie, which I still have a few of, so if you know anybody that wants one, but the case Schoolie is it's a sleeve that keeps a case of beer cold for 10 hours without any ice. So like a koozie for a can of beer will keep it cold for an hour or two. This is for a whole up to a 30 pack. So you can put a 12 pack or 30 pack in it, and it just stays cold. It stays cold for most of the day. So that was obviously something that came out of my college years. We used to do a lot of drinking and tailgating and all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, I started with a product-based business, was not successful at it. We did sell a few thousand case Schoolies, which is pretty cool. And it's always fun to see, people here and there still using the product. But truth be told, like, I think my main challenge I ran into there was marketing. I had some background, I understood marketing. But I had mostly in my previous jobs done very direct sort of knocking on doors or cold calling and things like that, which I did do for Case Schoolie, and we got it into a whole bunch of stores, which was really exciting. And then it would not sell in the stores because we didn't know how to merchandise it, right? So we had terrible packaging, that we didn't come up, like I had Vanessa, who was a burgeoning graphic designer, like just getting started, helped me design some signage and stuff. And she didn't know what she was doing yet, and I didn't know what I was doing yet. And it was sort of, a lot of experimentation that obviously didn't quite work. So, you live and learn, obviously, but I started there. And then I ended up getting a job working at Sears in the tool department, just selling lawnmowers and stuff like that. And after 9 months, I quit. They told me I didn't need to give them 2 weeks. So instead of having 2 more weeks of income, I had, I was done.
Sure.
And so I started Connect Marketing the next day. I was like, all right, well, I didn't like working for other people for 9 months. So I'm going to get back into trying to be an entrepreneur.
Great. And then Connect Marketing, you weren't really into sort of digital marketing, social media, or any of that stuff at the time, right? It was more in person kind of. It was
door knocking. Yeah. I mean, it was really just, so for 6 years before I started, I started Case Schoolie while I was working for a company called College Works Painting. So, it's an internship program. You as a typically business majors mostly run a small painting business for the summer. So the way you get that business is you knock on doors and you hand out flyers, right? And I got pretty good at that part of it. I actually hired a team of people, and I tended to have sort of the most leads in our division, which is really what kind of powered my business that first year. And then I ended up working there for 6 years. So I learned how to teach other people to do those things and manage groups of people that were also teaching other people to do those things. So that was what I knew, right? So when I left the job at Sears, it was sort of like, all right, I need to make money soon. The one thing I learned in the product business with Case Schoolie, well, there's a lot of things I learned, but one of them was certainly that it takes a long time to get a product-based business off the ground. You got to design the product, you got to get it manufactured. There's a lot of startup costs. You're not going to usually see a significant return for oftentimes, at least months, if not years. That wasn't an option. So I knew I needed to go in the direction of sort of freelance services or, something I could get a paycheck from within weeks. And so, hey, you know what? People will pay you to knock on doors, and they'll pay you to pass out flyers, and they'll pay you to run teams doing it. And so, yeah, we went to, and at the time it was pretty much just me and a buddy of mine, but we went to contractors. I'd worked in the painting industry, so I was very familiar with the contracting industry, and they're always looking for more leads. And so we picked up some clients pretty easily, and we started knocking on the doors and doing the thing with the flyers. And, we were up and running in like a week or two. It was really kind of cool.
So how do you go from passing out flyers to video?
Yeah, right. Well, you keep looking for something that pays better and is more consistent, and you eventually find it, I guess. So what happened for us was initially we were mostly door knocking. And this is kind of crazy, the problem, because this problem has actually just gotten worse since then. We would get leads. So we'd knock on somebody's door, which is very disruptive, right? And they come to the door, and most people are surprisingly nice. You would assume they'd mostly yell at you, but most people are really friendly. And you have a conversation. They say, you know what? Yeah, I want this quote. Thank you for knocking on my door. I actually want someone to call me about my roof or my gutters or whatever it is, right? Then we'd pass the lead on, and we had a pretty slick operation. I mean, we were putting these straight into the internet. They're getting an email in their office with this lead immediately, right? I mean, they could call them within 5 minutes of us having the conversation, and then they weren't. They just were not calling the leads. Ridiculous problem. I mean, that's, there's very few industries where this is an issue, right? And the reason for it is that the whole construction industry, all the contracting, all the manual labor type jobs, they're very short staffed. There's just not enough people doing them. The trades are definitely in need of more workers, like millions of people in terms of the shortage. And so they just can't, like, they get to a certain limit and they just can't kind of take on any more work. And it gets to a point where, like, if you want certain things done by some of these companies, like, you almost have to, like, aggressively pursue them to get into their calendar. So, you don't need to call your leads if that's how things are working, right? So, as a marketing company, last thing you want to do is generate interest in some sort of service and then just have it sort of fall apart from there. So then that's not really a knock on the companies we work with. It's more just the fact that the whole industry is just overloaded with work. I mean, it really is an issue. So we started saying, okay, well, the door knocking, I mean, it works, but, we're running into this issue of people not calling the leads, and then that's upsetting the leads. And we don't want to create this sort of unnecessary tension. So we focused on flyers. We actually started innovating around flyers. We have a sticky flyer you can stick to the front door, and it tends to get more attention from people, and we're getting a higher response rate and all that. Okay. But the problem we were running into is that most flyer campaigns we were doing were large campaigns, thousands and thousands of flyers, but like once a year, right? So you go out and you hire a team, you go out for 2-3 weeks, you do all this, maybe it's a political campaign or recruiting for a school or whatever it was. And then if you didn't have another big order of flyers right away, you had to lay people off, right? And so it was kind of the cyclical employment thing. And we just couldn't quite get it to the point where we were staying, busy enough, right? Because it's also sort of seasonality, and you're not going to want to put out flyers in the middle of, January. We did, but it's not a lot of fun. And so we started looking for industries that would have a need for regular flyer delivery, right? So I want to put a flyer on a door every month, and that was what we wanted to find. And that steered us into real estate. So real estate, agents, they have a lot of them use this marketing technique called farming, where you pick a neighborhood and you just send mail to that neighborhood every month, right? Sometimes multiple times a month. And over time, people start to recognize you and know you and trust you. And it takes a long time to pay off, but it also tends to work forever, right? So once you've established yourself in that neighborhood, now you're that neighborhood agent, and that's a very hard thing to unseat you from. So we went into real estate. We started talking to real estate agents, and hey, what if we did flyers instead of mail, because it's going to get more attention, you're going to get a better response rate and all that. And that sort of evolved into what else can we do? What other ways can we target these neighborhoods to sort of reinforce that awareness and that branding that they're developing? And that's what led us ultimately to targeted video advertising, right? So we kind of stumbled on, and this was probably 5 years ago now. We're kind of looking at what is cutting edge, what's the future of marketing. And that was, video was just starting to take off as an advertising option. And so that's what got us into it. Obviously, there's a whole process of learning to do it and, starting to work with videographers and all that. But we've stayed in that lane ever since, which I'm happy about, because it sucks to keep changing what you're offering all the time.
Yeah. So it seems like actually going sort of like hyper niche was advantageous to you.
Best thing you could ever do as a business owner, in my opinion. I mean, I think that's we try to teach that to our customers, and there's always resistance initially because it feels like it's just not logical, right? It's just the whole idea of like, I want to tell as many people as possible about what I do. But what I've certainly learned at this point is if you can focus and almost, especially early on, the more narrow you can get, the more specific you can get, the better, because it's so much easier to capture a small group's attention than it is to get everybody's attention, right? So by focusing on real estate, and I will say, like, real estate agents get sold to constantly. There are so many companies that want to sell something to real estate agents. And so they tend to be defensive because of that. So when you show up in their industry, initially it is kind of like, well, who are you? I don't know you. I have all these relationships. I've been doing this for 20 years. What do you got to sell? Are you even going to be around in another year or two? Because a lot of that stuff comes and goes. And so that's the front end, which was intimidating, right? But then on the other side of that, once you've been around for a while and you have established your reputation there, which we did specifically with targeted video ads. So we just show video ads of ourselves to all the real estate agents in St. Louis. And now we do it, across the country. But then as they get to know you, you sort of become an insider, right? And I think this happens with any industry, right? So as you become that insider, as you become part of the community, even though I've never been a real estate agent and I've never held a real estate license, it opens doors. And I think there's the marketing angle, but there's also the networking angle. That was something that I've kind of learned over the past couple of years, is that if you focus on a niche, especially if you're, B2B and you sort of focus on a particular industry, you can network your way up to the top of that industry much faster, right? And in fact, like, I wouldn't even know how to do it if I wasn't focused on a particular industry, because in each industry there are specific stars, like our partners, Jeff and Tristan, they're kind of like stars in the real estate industry, like thousands and thousands, probably for Tristan, because he started Lab Coat Agents, hundreds of thousands of people know who he is, and follow him and trust him and have this respect for him. And same thing with Jeff. Jeff just kind of came into the picture a couple of years later. So that is not easy to do if you don't have a particular focus, right? If you want to be just sort of a business guru, that's going to be much harder to get to than doing it within a particular industry. And so it's great, because now that we know this and we've kind of learned it by doing it, it gives you a sense of security, right? Because now it's kind of like, all right, if I ever need to grow the business, and we could grow quite a bit inside of real estate for a long time, but if I want to get into other industries, I now have sort of a pattern we can follow to do that. And that gives you this, definitely a lot more confidence when it comes to growing.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. And I will fully admit that I am one of those people that struggles with but if I don't just take the business when it comes in, or whoever it is, it boggles my mind sometimes, like, oh no, that seems like a bad idea. So right. I definitely admit that, but I'm trying to change. So.
Well, and it's, I think it's also important to understand that a lot of times when people hear about niching, they think about saying no to certain business, and that is part of it. Like, because there will be opportunities that you just have to kind of pass on in order to stay focused, but that isn't so much a problem when instead you focus on the marketing and the exposure side of it, right? Because like at this point, everyone knows we work with real estate agents. Real estate agents know it, but so do everyone else, right? Yeah. So we don't get a lot of leads in other industries anymore, but we get a lot of leads in real estate, right? So you eventually, by sort of the marketing efforts, you kind of solve that problem. Like you don't necessarily get a lot of people reaching out with other projects. I've also found that as we have specialized, we've also started to meet other businesses that have also specialized in other niches. And it becomes a really efficient referral opportunity, right? Because now, so they get to, oh, hey, but there's a real estate agent that wants to do video, personal brand video. You guys are the people to talk to, or they want to learn to make videos. You guys are the people to talk to. We get somebody, a contractor or something that maybe would have been a great client for us 5 or 6 years ago. And we have people we can then pass them over to that we know are going to do a great job for them because they specialize in that industry and we've seen their work and that kind of stuff. So I think in terms of making that shift, because I think a lot of people they're starting to understand the value of this. I think the internet has definitely changed it, because the reality is it was hard to target people. It's only been past, maybe I'd say 5 to 10 years that you could sort of target that niche. Like I can go on Facebook and I can target people with real estate agent in their job title who work for the real estate businesses. So I know I'm getting in front of the right people. That has traditionally been a much harder, right? So I think that has started to change the attitude around these things. And as those attitudes shift, you're going to start to see this, I would think, more and more, where businesses are really specialized in serving particular types of companies, particular types of people with certain interests. And you'll probably see, there'll be a parent company that owns 10 of these different specialized businesses. So there'll still be, the big guy on the top, so to speak. But the messaging is so much easier. There's certain things, like there's words I use now that are just from the real estate industry, that other people are just like, what does that even mean? But that makes it very easy to communicate with our audience. And it means that they automatically feel a sense of sort of kinship and, I can trust this person. They're using the words that I know, they're talking about the things that matter. I probably stay more up to date on the real estate industry than most realtors do, right? Because I just want to be able to talk about these things from a place of knowledge and expertise.
So I think we've definitely covered like how you got to business video school. Let's talk a little bit. What does that even look like? What's the curriculum look like? Is this live, pre-recorded, all these different things?
Yeah, well, so we're trying, let me start here. We have a couple pillars that we sort of value in the school. We call it our values, right? And these are the things that we really try to build the school around. So, knowledge is obviously a big part of it. I mean, if you don't learn the information, then you can't execute on it. But I do think there's too much online learning that's focused on just acquiring the knowledge. Watch the videos, maybe take the quiz. That's the fundamentals. You need that. But I also think there's other aspects. And so we also focus on practice and accountability. And so those are sort of our three primary focuses inside of the school. There's other things, obviously, that we're concerned about. But so everything we've done has been in service of sort of those three aspects, right? So we're not just going to teach somebody something. We're also going to make them practice it as much as we can with an online learning system. And then we're going to also do whatever we can to hold them accountable to it. So few aspects of what we do in Business Video School, our main curriculum, which we call the Real Estate Video Roadmap, is about 40, it's getting close to 50 hours of total training. And it's really meant to take somebody from, I've never made a video in my entire life, so I need to know every little tiny step that goes into it, which most gurus or experts don't teach at all. They want to teach the high level strategy. They don't want to teach you how to hit the record button properly or where you should be in the frame when you're doing a selfie video, but we start there, and you can skip that if you've been doing video for a couple of years or something. You don't have to start there. It's up to you. But most of our students, even the more experienced ones, like to start there because they're picking up fundamental things that they may have missed. And then we have, I don't want to say everything, but we have quite a bit of training that could lead somebody all the way up to the point where they have a YouTube channel that's generating business, or they have a Facebook funnel. We got training on Facebook video advertising if you want to go the paid route. And so that's the core, right? So we expect a lot of our students to take those classes. They can take them on demand, or we also use a cohort-based learning process. So what that means is that we have different courses, right? So we'll schedule the course to start airing on a certain date, and we'll say every day for the next 8 weeks, we're gonna air one of these classes. We're also going to have an instructor present in the chat. So they're watching the pre-recorded training, but they're watching it with other students, which is why it's a cohort-based approach at the same time. They're all watching at the same time. And they can ask questions in the chat. They can see other people's questions and the answers that they're getting. And so it adds an element of accountability, right? Because you can kind of see who shows up to class and who's taking it seriously. We have homework project at the end, again, not required to do it, but a lot of our students choose to. And the thing is, all the homework is designed to be applicable to their business. So they can actually make something that they could go share and use to grow their company. And then at the end of each of the courses, we have several weeks of something we literally just introduced, or I don't even know if this is public yet, but it's called labs. And so the idea for these labs is to get together and just execute, right? So we'll say, okay, the next 45 minutes, we're just going to send video messages to the people in our database. We're going to give you some scripts, and you're going to sit down and you're just going to send them. And at the end, you're going to report in the chat how many messages you sent, right? So it's very much geared towards execution and accountability and applying these things because, from what we've seen, there's a lot of temptation to procrastinate by learning, especially on the internet. And I do it all the time, just sort of keep researching, keep reading stuff, sort of get down that wormhole, so to speak. And that can definitely backfire. If you're not taking what you're learning and then applying it, in my opinion, pretty much immediately, you're probably going to lose some of that retention. And what does it matter if you don't use it, right? So that's really kind of the core. There's a couple other components. I mean, not to drone on too long here, but we do accountability challenges, which is every month we get together and split up into teams and just hold each other accountable to making a video. We see which team ends up producing the most videos with one video submission per person. So there's accountability to make usually a holiday themed video of some kind. Sure. We did one for Valentine's Day and Thanksgiving, and we did one for Halloween and around the holidays, around Christmas and whatnot, that kind of thing. That's a lot of fun. People like those. And then we have another thing called video recipes, which is sort of like a video script, but we take it a step further. We make an example video with the script so our students can see how to actually execute the video. We give them instructions on how to do it. And we also write the Facebook post for them, so they don't have to think about what to say when they share it. And then we make a new one of those every week. So there's a few other things we do, but that's kind of the core aspect of the school. And so for a lot of our students, it's a nice blend of learning the things they need to, but then also having a chance to really execute on those things and stay accountable. And we had a student the other day who was doing the video messaging, which is some of the very first classes, because we think that's the easiest place to start with videos, is one-to-one video messages. And she started sending messages to her database, and it generated 4 sales appointments in just one day. And this is for people who want to sell their house, which is that's hard to find right now. There's a real shortage of listings in the real estate industry, and so she was able to get 4 appointments set up, which kind of blew her mind, kind of blew our mind a little bit too. But there's a lot of opportunity there if you're executing, and that's what we try to focus on.
Gotcha. No, I actually think that is a great point about putting stuff into practice that you're learning, because certainly I've prioritized training inside. I mean, we spend at least an hour once a week inside of my own company just on training.
Nice.
But I also think that if you're not doing it, you don't remember it. We definitely are trying to think, these are real world problems. This is how we're solving them. These kind of things. I think that is a great thing, and it's definitely a differentiator between a lot of online training and what you're doing. So you mentioned this success story. What are some of the other success stories you've seen come out of this?
Well, I mean, in a lot of ways, video is very complicated. I think a lot of people underestimate how much of a learning curve there's going to be. We did. I mean, everybody does, right? Yeah. I mean, there's a lot, especially a lot of tech, but even just being on camera takes a long time to get used to. I mean, we both, obviously shared that experience over the past few years with the show. And I think that anytime you see somebody have success just making content is exciting. I mean, we obviously see people who get business results, like the example I just gave. But I think the things I'm more proud of is when I see somebody who's been resisting making video for years, and it happens, almost every student, it seems like, has said, I've been wanting to do this for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. They've been hearing about it for a long time, and they've just been psyching themselves out of it, just sort of telling themselves, oh, I'm not a video person, or this isn't for me, or I don't know what to talk about on camera, all that kind of stuff. And so to see those people start to send video messages or start to make the videos, we had one of our students actually came into the holiday accountability challenge that we did a few months ago. And he, in his video, and this wasn't, I don't think he was going to share this publicly, but he made it and shared it with the other students in our campus. But he said, I have been wanting to do this for years. I joined the school a few months ago, still was not doing the videos, was not doing the homework, what all that stuff. And then I saw this challenge, and then this is what finally got me to kind of take that step and start doing this. And then he kept making videos after that, right? So I've seen him in a couple other challenges, and we've seen him do some of the homework, and he's starting to share some stuff publicly. And to me, it's especially because the average real estate agent is 56 or 57. Okay. I mean, the industry average is really high. A lot of our students are in their 60s and even 70s. And so to help some of these business people and these entrepreneurs take this step, especially when they don't necessarily need to. I mean, it's, a lot of them could probably retire and be fine in terms of finances, but they're still challenging themselves. They're still pushing. They're still trying to, serve their clients and continue to be relevant, stay ahead of the curve in terms of the changes. And so I think that's always exciting, is to see that participation. I mean, for instance, on our accountability challenges up until now, we've had a 70% completion rate. So, about 2/3, a little bit more than 2/3 of the students that sign up for those are actually making a video. And a lot of times that's the only one they've made that month. And so I think if people accept that, hey, this is going to take me, obviously when you sign up for a training, and I don't expect people to stay in the school, forever. But if they accept that it's going to take some time, and I just need to give myself that flexibility, and they can come and go from the school whenever they want. It's a monthly subscription that they can cancel and renew whenever they'd like to. If they give themselves time, I think they'll have a lot of success making this transition, because this is really a shift in how we communicate. This is not just a marketing tool. This is, I kind of think of it as like, it's not, I got into chatbots for a while, and I think chatbots can be a really cool marketing tool, but this isn't chatbots. This is not, sort of a fatty kind of, it's going to be here and then gone, or, plays a small part in a business. Like, this is a complete shift in how we talk to people, Yes. And so I think seeing people understand that and start to make that change, and then seeing the way their clients respond, because a lot of times, we focus too much on, biz dev, trying to get the next client. And usually the next client comes from relationships, comes from, you don't even know where it's going to come from. If somebody you've known for years reaches out with a referral or whatnot, So I think seeing people just accept that and focus more on, hey, I'm going to send a video saying happy birthday to somebody. I'm going to send a video checking in on how their kids are doing or whatever. And then seeing the responses they're getting and the kinds of conversations they're having as a result, like that's probably to me the most satisfying part.
Great. So how should people start? Where either 101 tips and how do people find you?
Well, the easiest way to find us is bizvideoschool.com. So bizvideoschool.com. On our website, there is a place where you can sign up for our free video lessons. And so this is a series of very short video lessons. They're anywhere from about 1 minute on the short end to 7 or 8 minutes on the long end. When you first sign up, we're going to send you a video lesson every day for 2 weeks. And then after that, you get a new one every week. We'll make a new one of these on a weekly basis. And so that is on the website. That would be a great place to start if you want our help, right? It's free. You're mostly just going to get free value. And then we'll tell you about when new classes are opening and when we're doing, public webinars and things like that. In terms of what somebody should do to get started, first few steps, the big thing to me is stay as simple as possible. And that, so no equipment. You don't need to worry about, a microphone, just no equipment at all. You've got a cell phone. Most of us have 4K. I actually have an 8K camera in this phone. I don't know why. I don't really want to use it. It takes up way too much space when I record with it. But, what else do you need, right? You got a 4K camera in your hand. So I think that's an important thing. Start simple. I think another one is start with video messages, one-to-one video messages. Send somebody a quick 10-second video saying happy birthday, right? That's the kind of stuff that is going to help you get over that initial uncomfortableness around what you look like and sound like on camera. Because the truth is, we are the only person that sees ourselves as different or hears ourselves as different on camera. Everyone else just sees the same person they would see in person, right? So that's just something you got to get over. Once you get over that, once you get used to hearing your voice and seeing your face on video, then other opportunities will start to arise, right? Your creativity comes out once you get some confidence behind what you're doing. And we've tried a lot of different things. We've tried starting people in all kinds of different places. And the one that does seem to get the most traction is the messages, right? So if you focus on, let me just use this as a form of communication. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm not going to buy equipment. I'm not going to spend any money. Start there and then take small steps over time. And lo and behold, 6 months, 12 months, a year or two later, you're going to be putting out stuff on social media. You're going to be making much more significant moves in that direction. But if you try to start there, in my experience, you're going to fall flat on your face and you're going to think it's harder than it actually is, right? Because you're going to get out there and try to learn editing and try to learn lighting and, a million different things on day one. And it makes it way, way harder, right? So it's the whole, walk before you run kind of thing. But I think video messaging and avoiding any complexity is probably crucial.
Yeah, and I will also say, as a person that has spent probably too much money on equipment, certainly, getting started is maybe the most important thing, for sure. Because look, I've had cameras from when you're using, 5 wires to plug it into your TV to now the phone did everything, and multiple generations of these things,
right?
Just to get started. So just to get started, when now you can do it on your phone. So yeah, just get started. I think that is an important thing. One thing, because I want to be really aware of the time we have here, because you've got a hard out. One other thing that I would be interested in hearing is, what are you sort of excited about or interested in social media, marketing? Is there anything out there right now that you're like, oh man, this might be the next thing to you?
In terms of the next thing, right now, I think TikTok and short form video are the current thing. I don't think it's necessarily next anymore. And that happened really quickly. I do think, Clubhouse and sort of this audio only form of social media is clearly emerging as a significant trend. Just saw the other day that Twitter at some point was in talks to acquire Clubhouse for $4 billion. So obviously, that they've been around for a year and a half at most at this point. So there's definitely something there. That being said, another sort of trend, I guess I would say I'm starting to understand here is that there are so many different places and formats and ways to do social media at this point that it is no longer, in my mind, important to try to do a lot of them, right? I think that that's something I've always felt the pressure around is like, I need to be posting to all these different platforms.
Sure.
Instagram, there's 4 or 5 different places to post, and everybody's got all these different rules about you got to post this many stories a day, and you got to share things about your personal life, or no, you don't. Gary Vee never shares, personal stuff. So he's got a whole different, and I think that it just gets to be, if it was 5 or 10 years ago, there was like 10% as many things to even do, right? I mean, there's only one way to post on Instagram. Now there's like 4 or 5, right?
Sure.
So I think that's another thing that at least I'm personally trying to think about a lot is you don't need to do it all. And that pressure to try to do it all actually tends to make you procrastinate. So just focusing on what's your core audience, where's your core thing? It doesn't, like, the trends kind of don't matter anymore, right? I mean, I think we have opportunities to get easy attention. Mm-hmm. Like I picked up a bunch of followers on both Instagram and Clubhouse by going on Clubhouse and talking, and that was cool. But I keep coming back to, like, I don't need to be trying to do everything else everybody is doing. I need to do the things that I'm good at, So like, for instance, like doing interviews, like I started doing interviews again, and I hadn't done that for the past year, and it's a format I love, and I feel like I've gotten pretty good at this point. And, so I just need to do that and then cut up my interviews and put them out in front of lots of different people. And that's that. And if I don't want to share, too much personal content, I don't need to, right? Because there's so many different opportunities and different lanes. And so that to me, I mean, I think the voice thing and the short form video, those are the clear trends at the moment. But my suggestion would be, don't worry about the trends. Just focus on the thing that you're going to enjoy doing. Because I do think there's enough options now. I mean, there's so many different forms of content, even getting outside of video. You can do podcasting, you do blogging still, and all these things still work. And what we're ultimately seeing is that people are just getting very used to communicating through the internet, right? That's sort of finally setting in, especially going through all this Zooming we did for the past year. And so because of that, just focus on whatever you're good at and you enjoy. And if you enjoy it to some degree, you're 1,000 times more likely to do it. And to me, that's the most important part. Great.
Well, I want to be super cognizant of your time because I know you've got a hard out, don't you?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta go interview somebody else next.
Exactly. So I want to, so let's, I guess, wrap it up there because, you've got 1 minute basically. So thank you, Nick. Thanks for starting the show. Thanks for everything you did to get us here. 100 episodes, man. Can you believe it?
I know, dude. It's exciting.
So yeah, I definitely want to.
I just want to, mention too. Congrats to you, man, because you started the event that birthed the show, and you're still doing it today. And 100 episodes, I think, is just the start.
Oh yeah, I hope that is true, and I think it will be. So, if people want to stick around for the next segment, because Nick is in marketing and video, I'm going to be talking about social media marketing in bourbon. And some video, and especially I'm going to be talking about this Fistful of Bourbon back here, who is hyper marketing that brand, including right now, it will be closed by this time. They're actually looking for a fist model, and they're offering $100,000 to do that. Wow. Yeah, so I will also be doing a tasting of that. So. Thank you again, Nick, for everything you've done, and keep doing what you're doing, man. I think it's all great.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for having me on. It was an honor to be here for the 100th episode, and good luck with, I'm sure, many, many more to come.
Awesome. Great. Before we get started, why don't you hit that subscribe button? Done? Great. So today we're going to talk a little bit more about social media, video, and bourbon. There's a lot that has been done, and I want to talk about a couple things. I can't possibly talk about everything. This video is already super long. Did you know that Instagram didn't start out as Instagram? It began as Bourbon. That's BURBN. One of the founders, Kevin Systrom, named this after the booze he loved. It started as a location sharing application that allowed people to check in and post pictures. Well, the location part didn't really get used. The photo part did. So they scrapped the location part and focused on the photo sharing infrastructure, which at the time didn't really exist or really wasn't well executed. And you know the rest of the story. $1 billion acquisition by Facebook, and now 1 billion users worldwide. And if you want, you could follow us on Instagram right now. I'm going to try and get back to posting more over there soon. And as far as Facebook goes, well, it's been both credited for the bourbon boom and blamed for ruining bourbon. Basically, the same groups that exploded on the platform to discuss bourbon also created a black market that made everything hard to find. It made Pappy and turned into basically flexing Blantons or rather than talking about unique brands, which of course some brands took full advantage of to raise prices. Facebook, to their credit, has started doing a pretty good job shutting down these secondary market groups. In 2015, Jim Beam made history and became the first whiskey to partner with Snapchat. This was to launch the brand Jim Beam Apple via 10-second vertical videos being served to viewers of stories for live events. It was considered a sort of a risky move at the time because it was a mostly millennial platform. So it had a very narrow age range. But if you looked at the actual user base above 21, it was about 82%. So not that risky. We don't have a Snapchat account, so I won't ask you to follow that. It has more to do with me thinking the UX and UI of the application are trash. I couldn't really find any brands using TikTok, but I'm sure it exists. Let me know who I should be following. Certainly individuals are starting businesses off of their bourbon TikTok brands. Steve Higdon being one of those who started 60-second bourbon reviews, who went viral right while deciding whether he should delete the app or not. And that is, of course, applicable to YouTube. You've got Whiskey Vault and Tribe. It's Bourbon Night, ADHD Whiskey, Bourbon Pursuit, and the Mash and Drum. These are the kind of people that has started out with what Nick is talking about. He's just starting and getting in front of camera and talking about whiskey. But I think taking that sort of action and creativity is happening with brands as well. We've of course seen this in Jim Beam everywhere. It's the number one bourbon brand. But you've also got smaller brands like Rabbit Hole with the There's No Going Back campaign, which is a 6-part unscripted film series highlighting the path of exceptional creatives pursuing their dreams. But there are others, which brings us to Fistful of Bourbon. This brand started out in Texas from what I'm sort of understanding, but it launched nationally last year in 2020. Obviously, this is a reference to the classic spaghetti western Fistful of Dollars. So with the launch, they released some videos with 2 cowboys talking about whiskey, but then subverted expectations by talking about goop, silk pajamas, and had a standoff involving sunscreen. Recently, Fistful of Bourbon had a $100,000 contest to become the first spokesfist. Unfortunately for you, that closed on April 13th. Now, this is an entrance from William Grant & Sons, and it's a blend of 5 straight bourbons. There's not a ton of information out there about what this actually is. We know it's bottled in New Jersey, and we know it's, 5 straight bourbons. That's pretty much it. Of course, William Grant makes Balvenie and Glenfiddich, obviously with Scottish roots. That's really, blending is very common in Scotch. It happens in bourbon, of course. We talked about Four Roses a couple weeks ago, but these are sourced versus being produced by one distiller. So the idea 5 bourbons, literally a fistful. This is this is actually the first bourbon in William Grant's portfolio. When I bought this bottle, it had a little tag thing around the neck. The person behind the counter rips it off and says, "I don't know why they put these things here." I just was like, "Yeah, marketing." I think I paid around $20 or something here. Certainly under 25 at any rate here in St. Louis. Now, this is a 90 proof bourbon, and we should give it a little try. I did have Jim Beam Black again for my comparison. Let's give her a little try here. What is that smell? I'm not getting much of a nose today. I think I might be a little stuffed up or something. Ooh, that's nice. I get some definite cinnamon there. More so than any other of the normal bourbon flavors. It's got okay legs. We know it's not, it's 2 years old or less. Yeah, that's good. That's good. I think at that price point, that's pretty good. Everything is pretty well balanced. So like that history of blending, that 100-year history of blending, I think has probably paid off pretty well. So should you buy this, or who should buy this? And who is it for? I think this is for anybody that wants, a solid bourbon that, it's not a bad price point in any stretch of the imagination. It still has some heat from the high proof. It's not totally tame, but it is very well balanced. Maybe get a little bit more sweetness out of the Jim Beam Black. Is it dry? It might be a little dry, but it's good. It's very good. Very surprised. $20, $25. If you can get it under $25, go get a bottle of this. If you want to try something a little different. Super balanced. Yeah, it's good. You should get it. It's just good. I think that's probably about it for this week. I don't want to spend too much more time. If you've tried this whiskey, what did you think of it? What was the main thing that you thought? Did you think it was worth the money? Let me know in the comments. I hope you join us next time for more great drinks and better conversations. And I'll see you soon. To stay up to date, follow us on social. We are at Bourbon Fridays on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok. See you next time.